Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel Coffee Break Chatters. And tonight we are taking a look at an incident involving Gabriel Hostin. He is the son of The View co host and former federal prosecutor Sunny Hostin. And this is after newly released police body camera footage brought renewed attention to a trespassing case in New York. The case itself began several weeks ago, but it returned to the headlines after video from the responding officers was released.
Hey, Mom, I'm walking by a train station and this cop is putting handcuffs on me. I got you. My mom's a lawyer, by the way. Okay.
And this video was showing both Gabriel Hostin's interaction with police and Sunny Hostin's efforts to explain the circumstances surrounding the incident. So here's what happened. So according to court records and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority Police Department, the incident occurred on the evening of June 16 in New Rochelle, New York. So shortly before 8 o'clock in the evening, MTA police officers encountered the 24-year-old near Metro North Railroad tracks at Station Plaza. Police reported seeing Gabriel inside the railroad right-of-way. That's an area that is close to the public and marked with no trespassing signs. So railroad rights-of-way are considered restricted property because they are active transportation corridors. So even when a person is not standing directly on the rails, entering these areas can present serious safety concerns due to approaching trains and limited visibilities. So because of those risks, unauthorized access can result in criminal enforcement. So when officers approached Gabriel, they asked why he was on the property. And according to police records and later statements made by his attorney, Gabriel explained that he had been out for a run. He said he noticed what appeared to be a gravel incline and believed it would be a good location for hill training as part of his workout. And Gabriel also stated that the entrance gate was open. And according to the defense, because that gate was open, he believed that the area was accessible and did not realize he had entered restricted railroad property. The police, however, viewed the situation a little bit differently. Okay? Officers advised Gabriel that regardless of whether the gate was open, the property remained off limits to the public. They also noted that warning signs were posted at the entrance. Body camera footage released by authorities shows that the encounter remained calm all throughout. Okay, Gabriel answered the officers' questions and complied with their instructions. There was no indication of resistance or any attempt to flee. Okay, during the conversation, officers explained that being inside the railroad right of way is considered an arrestable offense under New York law. However, after evaluating the situation, officers decided not to make a custodial arrest. Instead, what they did, they issued Gabriel a criminal trespass violation, which is a less serious enforcement action than an arrest. So one officer can be heard explaining that although Gabriel had been cooperative and appeared to have no criminal intent, officers were still required to take an action because the incident had been observed and documented. And the officer also explained that the railroad property is monitored and that they could not simply ignore the violation. Okay? So, at one point during the interaction, Gabriel asked officers whether issuing the citation was necessary. The officers responded that it was. They explained that their decision was based on department procedures and the fact that trespassing on the active railroad property is taken seriously because of the potential danger involved. Up to that point, the incident appeared to be a routine police encounter involving a trespassing violation. However, the situation quickly attracted national attention because of who Gabriel's mother is, Sunny Hostin. She is widely known as one of the co-hosts of ABC's daytime program, The View. And before entering the television, she worked as a federal prosecutor and built a career as an attorney and legal analyst. And while officers were still speaking with Gabriel, he contacted his mother by phone. A short time later, Sunny Hostin also arrived at the scene. And what happened during those conversations was captured on police body cameras and has since become the focus of widespread media coverage. So on the video, Sunny Hostin identified herself to the responding officers. She introduced herself by saying she was one of the co hosts of The View, okay, and a former federal prosecutor. She then began explaining who her son was, telling officers that Gabriel was a 2025 Harvard University graduate, okay, had no criminal record, and currently taught fourth grade geometry to students in the South Bronx. She described her son as someone who had never been in trouble with the law and argued that what happened was simply an honest mistake. And she repeatedly emphasized that Gabriel had no criminal history and there was no intent to violate the law. At one point in time, she told the officers that he was not a kid who's ever in trouble and asked them to consider the circumstances before moving forward with the citation. The responding officers listened to her explanation, okay, and acknowledged Gabriel's cooperation throughout the encounter. One officer stated that they understood Gabriel was not a criminal and recognized that he appeared to have a good background. However, the officers also explained that they could not simply overlook what had occurred. And according to the Bodycam footage, one officer told Sunny that their hands were tied. Okay. And the officer explained that the location was monitored by surveillance cameras and that once someone was found inside the railroad right of way, department policy required officers to take enforcement action. And the officer also clarified that Gabriel was actually receiving a less severe outcome than he could have. He explained that trespassing in that location is considered an arrestable offense under New York law. Instead of placing Gabriel under arrest, officers chose to issue him a trespassing violation because he had been cooperative and was not standing directly between the rails. The officer specifically noted that Gabriel had been inside the railroad right of way but was not in the center section of the tracks, often referred to by the railroad personnel as the gauge. That distinction was one of the reasons why officers exercised discretion during the encounter. Meanwhile, Gabriel also questioned the officers about the citation. After asking whether it was necessary, he later asked what would happen if the officers simply chose not to issue it. Okay? The officers again explained that they did not have that option. They emphasized that once the violation had been observed, documented, and recorded on body cameras, they were required to follow department procedures. The body cam footage has generated significant public discussion since its release. Some viewers have described Sunny Hostin's actions as those of a concerned mom advocating for her son during a stressful situation, but many more question whether mentioning her career as a former federal prosecutor and highlighting Gabriel's educational background could create the appearance that personal accomplishments or professional status should influence law enforcement decisions. She should know better. Neither the responding officers nor the MTA have publicly indicated that Gabriel received preferential treatment. In fact, officers proceeded with issuing the citation despite Sunny Hostin's request for consideration. Following the incident, the legal matter moved into New Rochelle City Court. Rather than hiring outside counsel, Gabriel Hostin is being represented by his mom, of course. As a licensed attorney and former federal prosecutor, Sunny Hostin formally entered the case as his legal representative. In a letter obtained by several media outlets, and this is including TMC and reported by USA Today and People, Sunny asked prosecutors to dismiss the violation. She argued that Gabriel had no criminal history or prior contact with criminal justice system and had simply been training as a runner that evening. According to her letter, Gabriel noticed what appeared to be a gravel hill suitable for workout exercises and entered the area because the gate was open. And she further argued that the only no trespassing sign was attached to one of the open gates and was not visible from Gabriel's point of entry. Sunny also stated that one of the responding officers acknowledged during the encounter that the gate should have been closed. And based on those circumstances, she argued that Gabriel reasonably believed that the area was open and accessible to the public and had no intention of unlawfully entering the private property. Her letter concluded that the incident resulted from an honest mistake rather than criminal intent. She also argued that continuing the persecution would unnecessarily affect a young man who had built an exemplary academic and personal record and who, in her view, posed no risk to the community. So, as of this report, the trespassing violation remains pending. Gabriel is scheduled to appear in New Rochelle City Court on July 31st, with Sunny Hostin representing him in the proceedings. So, Gabriel is scheduled to appear in New Rochelle City Court on July 31st, with Sunny Hostin representing him in the proceedings. Whether prosecutors will agree to dismiss the citation or allow the case to proceed will ultimately be decided through the court process, and we will continue to follow any developments and provide updates as new information becomes available. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.